Good day and good deeds. Welcome to the WeDoGood Podcast. I am your host, Charles Dame, for another episode out here today. I am joined by Brett Fitzgerald, the Executive Director of the iAngler Action Foundation. Brett's journey spans from military service. He's a great U.S. Army Special Operations hard charger, pioneering citizen science through the iAngler software, leading massive seagrass restorations. I mean, huge amounts of seagrass this guy has restored. Authoring a great book called The Sportsman's Best. It's Snook. It's absolutely a great read. I recommend you read it, or if you haven't picked it up, find it on Amazon. We're going to dive into local conservation projects. We're going to dive into the heroes for Habitat Fishing Tournament. We're going to talk about some social media stuff, and then probably just talk about Brett's life and the good deeds that he's done. So, Brett, welcome to the WeDoGood Podcast, and thanks for being here.
It's a real pleasure, Charlie. I appreciate you inviting me up. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's good to see you, brother. So listen, Brett, in childhood, growing up outside of New York, if I believe I'm right, is that right? Yeah, and different things along those lines. What kind of led you into fishing and getting started in that world when you were a kid?
Yeah. People think in New York, they think New York City, but actually I grew up in western New York, north of Buffalo, right on the shores of Lake Ontario in a town called Newfane. Newfane and Olcott are towns right next to each other, real small, a couple stoplight type towns, but fishing and sportsmanship is a big part of those towns. In fact, Olcott was named the fishing capital of the world about 10 years ago.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, but it's just a small farm that I grew up on with my mom and dad, sister and brother, and fished with my dad and my uncle and my grandfather quite a bit. That's kind of how it all started, and just was fascinated with everything that was in the water, from the bugs and snails, fish, leeches, all that stuff. Just always had my attention.
Well, that's kind of funny. That same kind of stuff kind of bleeds over into the military, right? The snails, the mosquitoes, those snakes, everything else.
Slugs.
As slugs, as time goes on in our service, that's definitely stuff we experience. What would you say in your military service? What kind of things that you did in the military? Did anything help you with your fishing?
I would say, if I had to think about it, the first job that I did in the military was a Morse code intercept, and that was a lot of searching for targets, just sitting there scrolling through frequencies trying to find your targets, and it required a lot of patience, being able to sit there and be inside your own head while you're sort of off-directed attention, focus on what you're doing, but your mind is also still thinking about 8,000 other things. I would say that probably helps in the slower times of fishing. And then after that, getting into special forces, I don't know, maybe I do have a tendency to do my fishing things in a little more extreme ways, and that might be responsible for that. Yeah.
So I know you said you were in special forces and you went through some different stuff. What schools did you go to? What bases, to pick some of the bases you went to? Were you at Fort Bragg at all? Were you at Fort Polk, places along those lines? I know you were an Army dog.
Yeah, schooling was just, the intelligence school was at Fort Devens. I'm just thinking of the highlights here. Of course, airborne school was at Fort Benning. Did spend some time at Fort Bragg. You jumped out of
perfectly good airplanes.
No, they were mostly Air Force planes. So. No. And the Leadership Academy, PLDC, that was in Hawaii. I think those are the main schools and areas. It was interesting.
Was that good duty out in Hawaii?
Oh, it was great. Yeah. Where I was stationed then, people were either going to Camp Jackson in Korea, which was miserable, staying in a GP medium on cots, or Club PLDC in Hawaii, and it was just luck of the draw. And I'm almost embarrassed because the first 50 people ahead of me went to Camp Jackson, and 50 people after me went to Camp Jackson, and for some reason I got the draw to go to Hawaii, and I didn't complain.
That's really awesome. I know you've told me some time about your time in service. I remember us having a conversation. In the Marine Corps, we'd call it like a captain's quarters or a meritorious mass, where you have to do certain things in order to get promoted and so on and so forth. So they bring you in front of a board and they quiz you. Tell me a little bit about that experience that you had while you were in that board service that you did, because I thought that was amazing how far you got.
Yeah, so of course promotional boards, but I guess all military branches have it, and this is going back some time, but if you go into a competition for the Soldier of the Month or Soldier of the Quarter, and that is a part
That
of
was
it.
it.
Yeah,
That was
there is
it.
a
Yeah.
board competition there too, where you're scored, and those competitions you just keep going until you lose, and
You just didn't lose.
I never did.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So, listen, post service, what inspired you to shift into speech therapy? Because that was, I know there has to be something that transitioned that, because you went from, I love to fish, I'm an outdoorsman, I'm a pointy end of the spear kind of guy, and now I'm going to be a speech pathologist. So, how did that change?
Yeah, that truly was just a coincidence. I met a person on campus, and she was in that major. And I had been kind of drifting around. I was going to do something that would lead me into maybe in the DEA, so I could do some similar type of work as I was doing with 1st Special Forces. And looking at what that coursework was and the people that were in the classes, I realized that might not necessarily be the people that I want to have a career built around. Right or wrong, I made judgments at the time and went a different direction. And I just met somebody and took a class and just kept taking the classes and kept, just kind of drifted in that direction.
So how long did you spend in the world of speech pathology before you headed into the direction of snook and trout again?
Yeah. I did that for, a full career, over, I guess, all in all, about 30 years. That was my full-time job for a long time. After I graduated with a master's degree from University of South Florida, and I came over to this coast and ran the speech and swallow lab at Good Samaritan Hospital. And once I got married and had kids, shifted into schools and had downtime, and then just started writing for Florida Sportsman and some other magazines, and that's what got me back into, after covering some conservation stories, introduced myself to the executive director of this foundation, which was then called the Snook Foundation, started volunteering for him. And then it was just eventually spending less time doing speech work and more time doing fishing, conservation in that industry.
Oh, that's really awesome. So on the speech side of the house, because I went through some stuff with my son Charlie. He's absolutely an amazing kid. 14. It was funny at the time. The speech pathologist that we had, he had apraxia, and the speech pathologist we had when he was little, they were like, he's going to be okay. He's going to be okay. But when he was like 4, and he still wasn't really talking that great. I was at 5. I was starting to stress, and the speech pathologist kept telling us, listen, it's going to happen. He's progressing well. All of a sudden, he's just going to talk so much, and he's just never going to shut up. So, and that happened. It did. It's finally come to fruition. But is there anything you can tell, like a family out there that has maybe a child with apraxia, what they could do, or something along those lines?
Yeah, speech apraxia. And there's 2 areas in the field which are still really difficult to diagnose and to understand and then treat. And apraxia and stuttering actually is the other one, where they still just have a hard time nailing down exactly where in your noodle it is that's causing the problems for each of those. So in apraxia, where it's a motor planning, and then in stuttering, again, it's still really don't know a whole lot about it, right? But it leads to a lot of room for interpretation and what is going to work and what isn't, as far as what therapists do. So I would say, in particular, with those 2 things, apraxia of speech and a motor planning disorder, right, and stuttering, you have to do your homework on your therapist. You have to ask them specifically what their experience is with those 2 types of disorders, and then ask them specifically what their treatment protocols and their philosophy is. There's a lot of different ways that these things can be approached, and a lot of times it just depends on the relationship with the therapist and the patient and how well they jive. That'll get you so far, but you do have to have some substance behind it, some rigorous and dedicated effort towards making sure you're doing practices that actually accomplish results. This is a bit of a generalization, but one thing to keep in mind, the area inside your brain that's responsible for planning out and moving everything from your waist down, your legs, your feet when you're walking, it's not that big. It's about the size of the end of your thumb. And the area that's responsible for planning and coordinating the muscles in your mouth and your tongue is as big as your fist. And of course, it's spread out throughout your brain. So it's incredibly complex. It takes up a big part of your brain to coordinate, to go from this nebulous thought to converting it to a language to go to a motor planning center to actually then go to the motor execution. A lot of steps in there, and where along that breakup is will determine whether it's a motor planning, an apraxia, or an actual language type, some other thing that's rooted in a different area.
That is absolutely amazing. Amazing. Everybody thought you were just going to be talking about military stuff and how to fish really good. But when we bring Brett on, he's definitely got a big toolkit to pull from. So I definitely wanted to help some other people out that kind of went through the same thing that my wife and I went through with our son. Thank you very much for sharing that, Brett. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit and bring it back home. Angler Action and the iAngler, right? Angler Action Foundation, it's an amazing organization. I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about it. I know you were Person of the Year at the Angler Action Foundation, and you guys run tournaments through your iAngler software. I just want to give you some time to kind of explain your foundation, what you guys do, and then a little bit about the iAngler software. And then, we could probably even start to get into maybe the Heroes for Habitat tournament that we do together every year to help veterans, first responders, and waterways.
Yeah. Great. I appreciate that. Well, Angler Action is formerly known as the Snook Foundation, and it has become more than just a passion project.
Absolutely.
So like I said, it was founded by William Mote in 1989. And it was originally designed to just be support the research wing of their Snook stock enhancement program there over in Sarasota. So it's gone through some different shifts and iterations, but ultimately when I came involved with them, I started volunteering as a writer and doing some community events and helping out in that way, just getting hands dirty, getting in the water, cleaning stuff up, doing beach cleanups and things like that. But I think, the writing and doing research on different conservation aspects really helped me understand a lot more about just that universe. One of the big shifts for us in 2010, and we've always been a really small organization as far as staff goes. At that time it was an executive director, his wife worked as a volunteer, and myself. And that was the whole staff. Our annual budget was probably somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 a year then for everything we did. And to give you an idea how we've changed, this past year we've received $7 million in new funding for seagrass restoration alone just for this year.
That's absolutely, I was going to say, I know that you guys have nearly 150 acres of seagrass restored in Caloosahatchee River and Indian River Lagoon. What are the biggest success lessons out of those two that you've kind of learned?
Yeah, Caloosahatchee.
I'm sorry. Well said.
Yeah, that's, man, it's just, well, first of all, it's just kind of shifting to seagrass, right? That's one of those things that seems like it should be really easy to do. You got areas where, seagrass is just like long grass in some sense. It grows in the ground. It needs sunlight. It flowers. It seeds. It can send out runners and rhizomes and that sort of thing. So in a sense, and in fact, the place that grows out the grass that we use is over in Ruskin, Florida. It used to be just a regular sod farm, but it was right there near Cockroach Bay in the saltwater, and they started growing out the seagrass there as well. So it's really hard. It's really hard to make seagrass grow in areas that it's just not happening, right? Whether it's an area that used to be lush and then the grass has disappeared, and those are the areas that we target and we have the most success. Or areas like the Lake Worth Lagoon down by where I live, where they've done restoration work and you're just kind of waiting for seagrass to recruit. But it's not really, I won't say never been there. There has been some, but in a generation there hasn't been any. So to try to understand why that is, that's the main key, is to understand why the grass isn't there or why it left. And
so is that how your iAngler software kind of came about, was trying to figure out where to plant the seagrass or why you needed to plant it in certain places? I know you started to explain some of it to me, and I thought it was absolutely amazing how you guys use this technology to find ways to improve the seagrass and restoration and water quality.
Yeah, that has been an interesting crossover. iAngler was a data collection concept that was brought together just to try to help managers manage the stocks of fish. And it started in 2010. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background here, then we'll tie them in together.
Yeah.
Because there's the seagrass side here, and then the iAngler data side, and then we have found out that there's overlap in ways that one can complement the other. So the iAngler data collection program in 2010 we had a cold snap here in Florida that ended up killing millions of snook and a lot of other fish as well.
Wow.
So it was kind of they called it a 1 in a century type storm. We had a northeast blow for something like 10 or 11 consecutive days, cold rain, there was ice in the Everglades, and that was the area.
Ice in the Everglades.
Yeah, 10,000 islands in the Everglades, some of the shallower water actually iced over. And what, to make a long story short, in these areas where there was, the wind was constantly blowing, tides could never come in, so snook and then a lot of other fish just died from the cold shock. Snook are a subtropical species. They're cold intolerant, so they were one of the first ones to go. Snook anglers are some of the craziest, most passionate, insane people out there.
I've met a few of them.
And,
they are touched. They remind me of submariners from the Navy.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Yeah, but obviously there's a lot of concern. They're very passionate about those fish, catching them and protecting them. So the state also, FWC, in their research wing, FWRI, Florida Wildlife Research Institute, which is a subdivision of FWC, and they are responsible for doing all the data that sets up the management plans for our bag limits and seize limits within state waters of Florida. So they reached out to us and said, hey, we'd already worked together on a few projects. They knew we had a pretty strong following in our email outreach, and we wrote a lot of original content for our snook psychos.
Yeah, yeah.
And they said, we need to know what people are seeing and catching out there. We have no idea what the hit was on that fish population. So they asked us to start recording how much time people were spending targeting snook, and just some details about that. So by the end of the summer, we had already outgrown a database that we built 2 times. We were on a 3rd database.
Wow.
And the people had to print out papers that we would email them, take them out in their boat, write down what they had, come back to this clunky website. And we just got a huge amount of data. And that was the first time that any state had opened up a data collection program to a non-state entity, to a private group. Angler Action Foundation, then Snook Foundation, we're a non-profit, but it's a private company, right? So,
yeah.
Coming around to it, they asked for that data. We sent it in. They came back and said, this is great. We're going to use this. We'd like you to capture more data on 6 other species of fish and inshore. And that's great. We're working on raising money to build an app so that people can just submit that information on the water. We got the app almost built. They came back and said, actually, just send us information on every fish out there, freshwater, saltwater. Let's blow this thing up. So we went back and rewrote all the programming. And through that, it became a system that we contributed data to stock assessments for snook, sea trout, and redfish in the state of Florida since 2010. And like I said, that's the only database that's been used in a state-level stock assessment in the country, at least at that time, that was not done, the whole data collection process wasn't done internally by their systems. And we've grown out to work with the Gulf Council and more so the South Atlantic Council and some federal species, helped with their red snapper debacles they've had with the management there in the Gulf and the Atlantic. So anyhow, you had another question?
No, yeah, I was going to say, not only does it do that, right, but the software now is kind of morphed, if I'm getting this right, on my end, into a fishing tournament software that helps anglers put together fishing tournaments, hold their events, and get you guys the information you need on fish. So, coming up soon, the 2 of us have our 2nd annual Heroes for Habitat fishing tournament, right? We have a few different species of fish that people are going to do. There's different ways to get involved with it, and that's all running through the iAngler software platform. We're doing sponsorships and stuff like that, which is really cool through the, the WeDoGood platform, which uses AI and a couple other things to help kind of get sponsors exactly what they're looking for, and then it turns them over to the iAngler side, which allows people to fish the tournament, sign up for the events as captains on boats. So if you get a chance, explain, use our fishing tournament, right? Good plug. Use our fishing tournament. Here, let me just throw that up on a screen. This is the site that we're talking about. You can go out to the iAngler website. You can sign up for our fishing tournament here, find out all the rules and information that are going on about it. But go over that stuff with them, maybe the types of fish, and then how the system works, and yeah, that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah. So the iAngler tournament platform that we're using for this event was kind of a cast-off or a spin-off from the original data collection, and we just used that basically for a few reasons. One was to convert as many tournaments as we could from kill or catch a fish and bring it across the bay or wherever in a truck or a live well or a back of a boat live well, and then weigh it and release it in a strange place to just a straight catch photo release where that data can be captured immediately. And the tournament directors can now, as soon as that fish is sent in, they can view it, either approve it or reject it, let them know there was something wrong or they made a mistake. And then the system will automatically update the leaderboard, so it's real-time information coming in. And it's been great in that way. It's really helped out a lot. What it's done for us, like for example, this Heroes for Habitat that's coming up, there's an offshore division that's going to be a weigh-in that's an aggregate of snapper and grouper and amberjack. So we do have a bring them in. If they're in season and legal, you can bring them in to weigh them in. And actually last year, if you remember our first, one person did keep their snappers in a live well, brought them in for the weigh-in and released them there. So you don't have to necessarily kill your fish.
They did that with some grunts or something. What are they called? Grunt? Do I have that right?
Yeah, there was grunts entered. Yeah, and I think they placed with those grunts and won a prize. But on the inshore side, where it's just catch photo release, they can take a picture, let it go, and then the information comes in. What that's done for us now, we started running tournaments through this app over 10 years ago, and we've had some tournaments, like Tampa Bay, we have a tournament, at least one tournament, almost every weekend.
What's the name of it?
Well, each week it's different. So some of the bigger ones, we have the NPCF, National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, is one of the longer running ones we've done every year in Tampa Bay. There's a handful of them. Team Addo is one that we've brought on here that has a similar mission to yours, where they're a nonprofit that helps veterans, service members who are about to ETS, get out or retire, helps them transition, buys them a suit, gives them training, helps them write a resume,
stuff, right?
Gives them job interview training, that sort of thing. Great program.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I met some of those people at ICAST when we were out there. I think you introduced me to a couple of them. Did you get some badges for them or something like that? And they were out walking around ICAST. I think it was last year.
That was the NPCF crew. Yeah. Chris
good people.
And those folks. Yeah, they're all good folks. But what that has done is allowed us to look at the catch rates of our target species in an area over time, from month to month, year to year, season to season. And it allows us to see, for example, we've been doing it long enough on the West Coast where you see the effects of red tide. Some events, it was so bad in some areas they just would cancel them. You can see an effect on areas that are suffering from seagrass loss based on the catch composition, right? If we see a sea trout ratio go down and we go back and look over time where they used to have a strong sea trout catch and their catch rates and size structure and all that, and then all of a sudden they're not catching any, or they're really small, a truncated size structure, that's one of the biggest indicators that a population of fish is stressed out and either overfished or struggling. So they'll start reproducing at a smaller size and truncate their size. It allows us to say, hey, we can go back to this area in the North Tampa Bay. There might be a seagrass problem here, and we can send people out or reach out to the Tampa Bay waterkeepers who are friends of ours to say, hey, let's go out and take a look here and see what we have going on. So it's been a great way for us to try to find stress points in water quality and habitat, just based on kind of trending data from tournament catch rates over years.
That's really awesome. So coming up on our event in September, on September 6th, are there any little local secrets or spots you might be able to give away here on the Treasure Coast to help any anglers that are going out to fish the different species that are in our event?
Well, it's no secret that this area has gone through a significant loss of seagrass, and it is recovering. And we do have a pretty big project here at Tucker Cove where we've planted 40 acres and we've got another 40 acres permitted.
Yeah, it's amazing what you guys are doing out there.
So, and a couple other projects a little further north that just got approved as well. So it's going to end up being, it's at a minimum $6 million plus of seagrass restoration work in waters that directly impact the Indian River. So to that, I would say, areas that used to have lush seagrass beds, like Herman's Bay and some of those areas, getting up by the power plant, going up towards Bear Point, and then on the other side there, Walton Road, used to always just have a ton of seagrass. It is starting to come back in that area. So the number one thing for you to do is get out there a few days before the tournament and try to find those areas where the seagrass has come back. And you might have to actually either get in the water or get down and look real close, because if there's an algae cover coming over, it might be deceptive, and you're really looking for those blades of grass, not just a green mat. That's a big thing you're looking for. But essentially, it's a lot of the things that I always look for when I'm going to a new spot: moving water, structure, pinch points in water, especially when you're talking about snook. And redfish, they do use structure as well, but you're looking more towards docks and oysters. Kind of those softer edges too, where there's a wall where maybe in the mud where it just gets a little bit deeper, and you'll hang up on those. And of course, with sea trout, you just want to find that seagrass.
So that's great advice. So those of you that are coming out to fish, or if you're just fishing in general here in the local area, that's a really good advice as to some spots to pick up if you're trying to catch some snook or some redfish, or especially those, and I think they're called spotted trout.
Spotted sea trout.
Spotted sea trout. So surfing the web, and which we all do, right? Sitting around doing absolutely nothing, and you're looking at your Instagram feed. Some of the things I've been noticing that seems to be catching a trend on the internet is fly fishing. Fly fishing seems to be picking up. People want to know about it, want to do it, because there's such a skill level that it takes to kind of fly fish. And me being your friend and spending some time with you at some shows, I get to pick up on some incredible knowledge that other people don't get to get. So when we were at ICAST last year, they had this really great setup there that was for like new products. And they had these rods and these reels, and they had fly fishing stuff that was in the area that people could do. And you gave me some really great information about the rod itself and the way it whips and things along those lines. What's some cool stuff you can tell me about, fly fishing, or a couple little hints you can give people that are looking to fly fish?
Boy.
You're like, do we have 3 hours?
Yeah. For me, I love fly fishing, but it's just another way to fish. I still love squeezing a bread ball on a hook and a cane pole is just as much as I love fly fishing. So it's just another method of getting out there and ways to kind of interact with the environment and the fish, right? So I would say, if I was to give someone advice on it, it's one of those segments of fishing that if you're not careful, you can spend a lot of money really quick. I wouldn't recommend doing that. You can start off in that middle of the road range, take a lesson from a certified fly caster, spend some time watching videos, and understand. The technology in fly rods now has changed. And the traditional, if you watch the old movie, A River Runs Through It, where it was the metronome and 10 and 2, and that applied really to those old bamboo rods. And then Lefty Kreh came along and said, with this equipment we have now with fiberglass and then graphite and these carbon fiber rods that have such incredibly fast action, it's really actually kind of changed. So spending some time with a certified fly casting instructor, even if it's just one day, is very worth it. And then just getting out there
and doing some fishing. So I don't know if you've seen some of these other trends that are out there. They're doing these things where they're like they're taking lures and then theming them into nail art and all different kinds of stuff like this. Do you see any quirky trends that are out there right now that are unconventional, that are helping open the doors maybe to conservation, or your conservation message that you guys have?
I don't know if there's any trend in the tackle like that I can think of off the top of my head, but I will say it is always promising that very rarely do we interact with anyone in the industry that doesn't recognize the value of short-term conservation as well as long-term conservation. They all recognize that if we were allowed to fish any species out of existence, we're not going to be going fishing anymore. They're not going to sell any product. And the government realizes, too, there's a lot of tax money that goes in. There's a lot of tax revenue that goes into the fishing industry as well. So it's beneficial for everybody that we maintain our fish stocks, that we maintain quality habitats and water quality. It's just good all the way around. And I do think that the industry in general understands that. It might be harder for them to get past that. We got to sell now, we want to push. And the understanding of what, one of the things that my foundation really works on is ensuring that we have appropriate access to our fisheries. And it's always a conversation to explain to people what the right access actually is, what good access is. It's not wild, wild west, go out there and harvest whatever you want, but it's also not changing our waters into an aquarium only where you can just go out and look. There's a balance there. There's a certain amount of fish that you want to be able to keep and harvest, and it keeps people interested. You want to be able to catch and release where you can. So it's just trying to understand really what that balance is so that we can all keep doing this, keep enjoying it, bring a fish home every now and then if that's what you want to do. And if you don't, be well educated on the best ways to get the fish off the hook while it's still strong and revived and released and hopefully not eaten by a shark or porpoise or things like that.
All right, so that kind of feeds into my last few questions I have. For our listeners out there, people that are listening and watching the podcast, what are some ways that they can be out on the boats, be responsible, and try to keep our waterways healthy in order for the next generation to enjoy them?
Yeah, great. I mean, the Boy Scout principle always applies: to leave your campsite better than how you found it. So every time I launch the boat, we have a nylon breathable trash bag that's in the back, and we just pick up the trash as we go in the boat. Anytime we go to the beach fishing, we pick up trash on our way back to the car, and fill up a trash bag and throw stuff out. It's always there. Anytime we go scuba diving, I have something with me where I'm putting trash off the reefs, cutting fishing lines, picking up leads, removing fishing hooks, that are wedged in. But here's a thing, Charlie, that people don't think about often. Most of the debris you find in a waterway or along the beach or along a creek, along a canal, it doesn't come from the water. It comes from people's yards, the parking lot out here where people are throwing trash out their car windows or on the sidewalk. Rain comes down, or a yard crew comes with a blower and blows the trash and the clippings, which has nutrients in it. They go down into a drain. They go down a culvert or a pipe somewhere and get into a ditch, go into a bigger ditch, come to a canal, and end up in the intercoastal and out in the ocean. So we could walk outside this building right here on Canner Highway, and I can just walk along the road and I can point to a cigarette butt and pretty confidently say, if it doesn't get picked up, that's going to be marine debris. That bottle cap next to it, that's marine debris, right? Anything that's within area of a culvert, it's not just picking up on the water, it's being thoughtful while we're upland and what we do with our trash.
Yeah, that's sound advice for sure. Absolutely. So what Angler Action Foundations, we're going to kind of finish it off a little bit with this, what Angler Action Foundation projects, and then what events or tournaments is it that you're most excited about that you've got happening down the pipe here?
Well, our Seagrass projects, you brought them up. That's really what we have been enjoying, working really hard. A lot of blood and sweat going into those things, and not that many tears, but I guess some. So we've got a really big project in the Caloosahatchee River that's been going great. That's a freshwater, like a Valsinaria project in an area where 2,000 acres of seagrass were lost based on a drought, a hurricane, and then a drought all kind of pressed in together. That seems like what happened was it wiped out, it burned the grass out, it started to come back, but there was a seed bank in there that was dormant. All those seeds popped. They didn't have a chance to flower and seed, but they got wiped out again by the second drought, and so it never recovered. So we're having a lot of success in that area now, and it's an ongoing battle. It requires biologists getting out there monthly. We have to protect the grass in cages so manatees don't eat it. Then we have to go out there and scrub the cages clean from biofouling because it needs that sunlight to get in. It's not complicated, but it's not necessarily simple or easy either.
Yeah, and that's, I think, some of that right there that you're talking about was part of what we're going to do together here in the future. Some of the money we raised from the Heroes from Habitat program is going to go to help us start to bring out veterans, first responder family members, take them out to areas, plant some seagrass, do some positive things, do some learning about seagrass restoration, but get vets in the water, floating around a little bit, especially some of our adaptive vets. It's really great, we know, for them to get in the water and get that experience. Maybe do some snorkeling, some fishing, and some same time and eat some good barbecue. But looking really forward to coming out and cleaning some of those cages with some vets and some other things with the program. And then what out of that, what's the largest project you currently have? Maybe you covered it, but if you could go over it real again one more time.
Yeah, so that Caloosahatchee project right now is the biggest.
It is, yeah.
The one that we started here at Tucker Cove, like I said, that's going to end up being 80 acres, and that's right here. There's an area a little bit north of here called Preacher Hole. We're going to be putting about 20 more acres in there. And those are both true seagrass areas.
Is that all Indian River Lagoon?
Yeah. Preacher Hole on the northern side. And then there's another one that's going to be in the St. Lucie Canal. That's just, it's going to be treating the fresh water, putting Valsinaria in it, and trying to clean that water up with some, pulling some nutrients out before it gets into the Indian River.
Brett, thank you so much, man, for coming out today and talking to me here on the We Do Good podcast. Thanks for your unwavering service to this nation, our country, to our waterways, and to our communities. Your work proves that good deeds, whether in uniform or on the shoreline, create lasting impact. And it creates it for all of us, especially our children and our future generations. To our listeners, make every cast count. Download the iAngler software while you're out there. Join us at the Heroes for Habitat Fishing Tournament on September 6th. Remember, don't forget, you can volunteer, you can fish, and those of you that got the bank account, you can sponsor for sure. Spreading good through conservation. Until next time, keep doing good, keep serving others, and keep our waterways wild and free. This is Charles Dame with the We Do Good podcast, doing good deeds for other people.